There's a Steven Show, the Steven Show, the Steven Show, yeah.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Steven Alexander. Today, I have an awesome guest with me. I am just so proud and so thrilled to introduce this awesome woman. She is our new interim president for Peay State University. And I just want to say this woman is so educated. She is so I could tell she's just such a giver to our campus, and she's so passionate about helping us as students. And I just want to introduce President Dannelle Whiteside. How are you today?
Hi, Steven. I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that you are willing to do this interview, and I just thank you for your time.
Of course. And I'm excited. I love your energy. And when I met you and talked with you in the television studio and you told me about the show, I was like, okay, I can do this. So I'm excited.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to get to know you a little bit more, and I know people who are watching our viewers want to get to know you. So
Okay.
can you just tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and just how you grew up and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I am product of a two-parent household. My mom, Deborah, my dad, David. My dad was a professor at Tennessee State University. And so I've always been in and around college life growing up. There would be times when my mom might not be able to get us right after school. And so we would be on campus running around. I have a brother who actually is a professor at Austin Peay in the art and design area. And so between my mom and my dad, we were always between them. So we would be at every university function, receptions, so I've always been around university life. And so I'm a lawyer by training. And I say that I learned how to keep confidentiality from being a little sister, because my brother would do things and I never told my brother. So that's how I learned how to keep secrets. So that's a little bit about my background and how I grew up. Just a regular childhood, great parents, great family structure, great community. So I just have always been surrounded by a whole lot of love. So, yeah.
I noticed that you mentioned educators, your father being an educator, and I noticed that. Do you think that is a big part of why you are an educator yourself and that you strive for more education? Do you think that that's always been something you've been bred to have?
Yeah, even though my mom was a dietitian, she worked for Metro Schools. So she's also worked in education and she was an administrator there. And her mom was a teacher. All of her aunts were teachers. My dad being a professor, it just always, in my household, it wasn't, whether you're going to college, is where you're going to college. And so I also came to understand that there could be a place for me in education, even though I might not want to be traditionally in the classroom. And even though I have done that, I've taught in university classes before, but I just thought about a lawyer's role in education. That's what made me want to become a lawyer. And then again, my passion has always been that we should be providing a great education to anyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from. So that's how I got into education. And I think absolutely having a background of educators really paved the way for me to get into this area.
Yes, I love that. I love everything you said. I just want to ask you too, because when we met before, I know one of the professors asked you, what are some of your favorite talk shows that you look up to and that you kind of identify with growing up? And I thought it was very interesting that you mentioned the Cosby Show in a different world, all these different shows that play a really big role in the African American community. And I just want to ask you, as the Cosby Show was a show that really highlighted the aspects of education for a Black family. Do you feel that you being exposed to that, you are able to represent that and give that energy to other students to let them know that you can achieve this, you can be successful as a student, and then particularly Black students, you can be successful if you put your mind to it?
I mean, I hope that people can look at me and see that it's possible. And I live in such a way that, I hope people will be able to find a path or find an example in the way that I live and how I am. But, I think that it's important to always look to people for examples and then kind of pave your own way. So, again, I hope that they see something in me that makes them think, okay, I can certainly do this. Now, obviously, there'll never be another Dannelle, like there'll never be another Steven. So don't, copy me exactly. But if there are things that you see in your mentors or people that you observe, I hope that people can find something and say, hey, I could do that, at least know that it's possible. And so I'm really happy to serve in that representation. Some people never even thought about going to college, or that they can be a professor, or that they can be a president. And so hopefully people will see me and say, well, it must be possible. If she can do it, then I can too.
Yes, yes. I want to highlight this for our viewers watching. You are the first African-American president that Austin Peay State University has ever had. And you are also a female. During this time of the movements that are going on between women and African-Americans and all these different things that are going on in our nation, how does it make you feel to just be impactful to our campus? And how does it make you feel to just be able to be in the position you're in and just be able to just showcase who you are and, allow people to see you for who you are?
Well, I said when I first started here that, you kind of feel a sense of weight on your shoulders. Like, I got several emails from, in particular, women of color who are students at Austin Peay saying, they never really felt like they had a place here. And so seeing me in this role really lets them know that that there is a place. And so I am very cognizant and aware of the fact that I'm the first. I hope to lead in such a way that I won't be the last, because I think it's important that when you're trailblazing, you have an example that you're setting, and you have to show people that it really doesn't matter how I come here, the color of my skin or my gender, but am I able to do the work? That's what matters. And once they see that, hey, it's okay, we're normal, we can function, it's fine, then hopefully I can continue to break down those barriers. And we're in a challenging time right now for a number of reasons, and I tried my best to just be myself. I hope that you connect with that. I hope others connect with that, because really I can, I tell people all the time, if you try to be someone else, you fail twice. You fail at being that other person, and you fail at being yourself. And so I am just being authentic, and I'm being who I am. And hopefully that can be a model for other people to follow. And it can break down those barriers of people thinking, because she's Black, she's less than, or, if there are any preconceived notions about someone's ability because of their skin color, then I hope that the work that I do will knock those down.
Yes. I want to ask you now, because you talked about those emails. Do you feel a sense of pressure from the Black community to be a certain way, that they're looking at you to be a certain way because you are the first and you're holding that kind of like that cup and that standard? Do you feel any pressure to be a certain way? And if so, what do you want people to know about that? And how do you want to shift that pressure?
Well, I don't necessarily feel I don't feel that it's pressure. What I feel is that, so I have been everywhere that I've worked. I've always been the youngest. Nine times out of 10, I'm one of very few people of color. And I've always been a woman. So, and usually it's in places where there's not many women. And so I have come accustomed to working in those type of environments and knocking down those walls and those barriers. So, if there is pressure, I don't internalize that. I just feel like, and I hope that students will understand this, especially students who are of color or who are women, that how people see you and how you operate, how people see you and experience you is their problem. Your job is to just do the work. And so, as I come in here every day, I don't feel pressure from the Black community to be a certain way or do a certain thing. I just feel pressure within myself to do the right thing and to move in the right way and to do my best work. And, hopefully it'll make them proud, because I do want them to be proud of me, but I don't let those voices and those types of things influence me in a way that takes me from being who I authentically am.
And see, I like everything you said, because sometimes we get caught up in these titles and in these groups and trying to be the certain kind of way that we miss the point of why we are in the positions that we're in. And I think that you're being more impactful and giving more insight to people by you just doing what you do and not trying to conform to be a certain kind of way. So I think that many people will respect you for that. And I wholeheartedly respect you for that, because I love everything you said. And specifically talking about, being sometimes the only person of color in the room or whatever. It's like, sometimes we get focused on those things and we have to realize that it's not about that. It's about us being us and being the best we can be. And if someone sees us as the only, person of color, they can look up to that, or people have an issue, that's on them, but it has nothing to do with you, because you're going to still do your thing.
That's right.
I love all of that. I love that. I just want to ask you, so in a time where we're so racially divided, how do you want to bring our campus together to let people know that we all are a team, we're all family, and we have to learn to accept each other's differences? Because sometimes we all say, well, I don't see differences, I don't see color, I don't see. How do you want to teach people and be an example for students and staff members that it's important for us to embrace all of us and be a team together?
Well, there's a few things I could say about that. First of all, I do not like when people say they don't see color, because I want you to see my color, and I want you to acknowledge that my color comes with making me who I am. So I want you to see my color. I want you to acknowledge who I am and experience, really try to get to know and experience me. I also say all the time that, we're a family here at Austin Peay. And so I feel like as I continue to say we're a family and we really show that we're a family, we will come together. But I will say after George Floyd's murder happened, I got together a small group of colleagues, and this is before I knew President White was leaving or before I was appointed interim president. And so I just got a small group of colleagues together to talk about building a habit for racial equity. And they were from all backgrounds, all ages, but all people in administration. And so we had a series of conversations about just kind of healing and talking about different things, different issues of race. And I loved it and they loved it. And so actually last week, we sent out an email campus wide. I had this idea about an initiative called A Place at Our Table, because as I keep saying, we're a family. If we're a family, then no matter what you do, no matter who you are, you will always have a place at our table because we're a family. And so basically what I'm trying to do is have several small groups, kind of like what we had been doing. And then with the purpose of getting people together and just having conversations, because a lot of times there's just a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and people aren't talking to each other. And they're also not getting to know each other, because I firmly believe, like, if you are a white female and you hold certain beliefs about me as a Black woman, if you really got to know me, surely you couldn't think about those, you couldn't hold those beliefs anymore if you really got to know me as a person. And so that's what I'm hoping A Place at Our Table is where you can all sit at the table, get to know each other, have some of these tough conversations, and then we can move forward in a place of healing. And so that's going to be open to faculty, staff, and students. In the first 2 hours of sending that notification, there were 30 people that were interested. By the next day, there were 65 people who were interested and had signed up. So I'm putting this plug out to all your audience that are watching to please get involved in A Place at Our Table. And of course, we'll be doing some other more concrete steps, but I feel like this is the first step to just get people talking, get people to know each other, get around that table, even though it might be on Zoom or whatever. But that I really feel like a lot of these problems are because we don't talk to each other, we don't know each other, and we don't have an opportunity to really come together as a family. So that's my plan.
I love that so much, because that's definitely what we need in this time. Because I think so many people want to be heard, so many people want to be understood.
Yep.
Sometimes we don't know how to communicate. And as a broadcaster, I'm trying to learn that myself because sometimes I'm not the best communicator. And I think it's important for us to communicate. And sometimes people say communication is key, but comprehension is key as well. Because you can communicate all day long, but sometimes there is no comprehension. So it's like, did you hear? And did you, like, this sounds condescending the way I'm saying this, but sometimes I say this to people. I'm like, so what did I just say? What did I just say? So you got this from that. Okay, I just want to make sure you're comprehending. You know, I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand, and I understand you understand. So there should be no, there should be no issues in the end. You know, and if there's issues, it's on your part.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I want to ask you now, just being the president and going through just so much during this time of COVID, because COVID is also another thing on its own. It's just, we're all battling. What ways are you working with students and faculty to make sure that our campus stays safe during this time? Because I know there's already outbreaks, but what precautions are you taking and trying to help people understand that we need to do to better, tame this COVID thing?
I'm really proud of the ways that we've come together, especially on the leadership side, to roll out some plans. We started doing this back in March when we, all went home and everything, was virtual. And then we shifted to trying to figure out a way to bring people back safely. And so, of course, we have the requirements in place of wearing a mask. If you're inside any of our buildings, you have to wear a mask. And then if you're outside, you have to wear a mask if you cannot be more than 6 feet apart. So that's sort of the baseline. And then we developed our reporting system. So if you have symptoms or you've been exposed to someone or you test positive, we have a Maxient form that you can fill out and someone will reach out to you. If you're in quarantine, someone will reach out to you to periodically check on you and your progress. We have testing in the art building that is free. And then, we meet every morning at 8:30. It's a smaller group of senior leadership team, some deans and our emergency managers. We meet every morning to talk about the status. We know all the number of cases that have been reported. We know all the people that are in quarantine that have reported. We know we have a list of supplies that we're keeping updated on. And so I really think that we've done a lot on the side of preparedness. We also have that Peay mobile app, which you might be familiar with. And so every day when you come to campus, you can report your symptoms, and then it'll kind of, if you're good to go, sorry, the lights just went off in here. If you're good to go, you can get a green check. And then what you'll do is when you go to different buildings, you can check in there so that if there's someone else in there that had the virus, it'll be easier for us to do contact tracing. And so we've sent out a number of communications about that, encouraging students to use that app. And then I also go live every week on Facebook and Instagram to let people know, number of cases, supplies, any general updates around COVID-19 or general campus updates. I really believe that I don't think in this situation that there's any type of over communication. Like, you cannot communicate enough about what's going on. And so we're now at week 4 and we are still here. There are other universities that after week 1, they had to go home. So I'm really proud of how people have been complying. I really feel like because we are still here, that lets us know that we've done a great job of preparing and getting ready for you all to come back. Obviously the mix of classes we're not at 100% because there are at least 50% of our classes are still virtual. And I'm happy that we are providing that option, because there's some students that said, well, I'm just not comfortable coming back on campus, and that's okay. But I really feel like a mix of all of those things really has made us be successful. So I'm really proud. I'm proud of our students. I know there are a couple of people, a couple of organizations that decided to throw some unsanctioned parties, and we I think that one of those organizations is on probation now. I know. So we did what we had to do. And, I hated to make an example of people, but we mean what we say. And also I wanted to say this, we're not saying you can't do anything, but we have guidelines. And so if you go through our events staff, if you go through Andy Keene with our venues around campus, there are some things that we ask that people do if they're going to host events, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything. I think people just think, oh, campus is shut down. No, but if you're going to have something, it has to be within those guidelines. If you're going to have something that's not within those guidelines and you try to do it off campus and hide, we're going to know and we're going to have to do something about it. So that was a long answer, but.
No, you're good. I'm glad you clarified that because so many people needed to hear that. I know those were some questions that people had, and you clarified all of that. And I think that it's also important for students to understand, like, just because in some areas the mask mandate has been lifted, it's still important for you to be precautious about other people in your life, because it's not just about you. It's about like the people that you're around. Like it's about all of that. So I think it's important for people to understand that. I want to ask you.
And wait, before you go there, I know the mask mandate has been lifted around the county, but we're still requiring it on campus. And I still think that students, when they're out and about outside of campus, should still be wearing their masks, because the data does tell us that masks make a difference. And, our faculty and staff are amazing. I call our faculty our frontline workers, because they're standing in front of, numbers of students, and the students don't, the data is really telling us the students really don't bear the most of the consequences from COVID-19. And so we're asking some of our faculty who are, some of them are, over the age of 60, or they might have underlying health conditions or small children at home, that we're asking them to still stand up there and deliver instruction to our students, because they care about them, but also because that's the mission of our university. And so, as students are making decisions, understand that it affects everyone. My mom, she tells me all the time, what you do affects somebody else. Okay, so when you're making these decisions, you're out and about, and you think you can be willy-nilly throwing a little cookout, remember your professor who's standing there in front of you every day, trying to make sure that you can leave here with a great education that you might potentially be exposing with the virus. And so hopefully that will help to, curb some of this behavior that we're seeing.
Yes. I thank you for clarifying that. Thank you so much for doing that. I want to ask you now, obviously with everything that's going on, and like you mentioned earlier, some of the universities in the United States have already closed. Do you guys have a plan for us if we do close? My question to you is, are we closing? And if so, what does that plan look like?
Well, I say the C word is the bad word, because we'll never close. We might pivot to virtual, but we'll never close. But, an example is just last week, I think we're last week, we noticed that in the music department, there was under 5 cases, like maybe 4, of COVID, and we just took a pause. You're okay.
Oh, okay.
If you weren't notified, you good, okay? But what we did was we said, okay, for the next 2 weeks, music classes are going to go virtual, so we can figure out, is there a better way to bring people back? And so we're I think Monday they'll be back. It's fine. And when we looked at the cases, there really has been no spike from there since. So we absolutely made the right call. And so I use that as an example. Right now, the way our numbers are looking, we are on track to going till till Thanksgiving, which is when, at Thanksgiving, all of our classes will go virtual anyway until finals. And so to me, if our numbers bear out the same as they are now, we're still on track to do that. But I gave that example because those are some of the options that we have. If we start to notice an uptick in cases, we will look at where it's happening. Is it in housing? If so, what do we need to do for that? Or, if it's in a particular area, how can we, make some decisions that might not affect the entire campus, but only that small area, so that we can make sure that we contain what could be a potential spread. So all options on the table, but Lord willing, we do not have to pivot 100% remote, because that's traumatic for a lot of people. It's hard on our budgets, especially when it comes to housing, because we have to get refunds, and so that's worst case scenario. And I really do feel like we have a process in place that will prevent us from having to do that. But obviously, it's really dependent on everyone complying with the guidelines and doing what they need to do to make sure that we can stay here until Thanksgiving.
So viewers, you heard that right. That means it's all on you. It's not President Whiteside's, responsibility. It's us. We got to do our part. So
That's right.
I love that. I want to ask now, because many people don't know that you were a part of Awesome Peay since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of behind the scenes and stuff like that. I kind of want you to talk about your experience behind the scenes before becoming the president. And I just want to talk to you about also when you did enter in as the president. What was that like for you? How was that experience? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Like, were you just like, oh, me? Like, I got picked? How was it? Like,
So yeah, I started, as you said, I started here in 2017 as general counsel and secretary to the board of trustees. General counsel just means I'm the lawyer for the campus. And so I headed the Office of Legal Affairs, myself and Costin Shamble as the university attorney. And then I got promoted to vice president for legal affairs, and sort of they had a more elevated role, but still more of the same work. And so I loved it. And, I was able to work on a lot of fun projects, but you're right. It is more of a behind the scenes role. Like I used to say, if I do my job well, students don't really know that I even exist, because I'm just trying to make sure that everything is working fine. We're complying with all the laws that we have to comply with. And so for the most part, that is a very behind the scenes role. And so then obviously when President White announced that she was leaving, I was upset, because like that, she's an amazing mentor, a great friend. So I was like, I just can't, I was upset. Like I had to literally, when she told us, we were in a senior leadership team meeting, I had to turn my camera off because I started crying, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. So I turned my camera off, got myself together, and came back. And so then fast forward to a couple weeks later, when Chairman O'Malley, chairman of the board of trustees, reached out and said that I was one of the ones they were considering. I was like, okay, let me think about it. And so then I let him know after thinking about it and talking to my husband and my mom, who is like, so I have a toddler, so she keeps him every day. And so I was like, okay, Mom, this could mean, more evening events and all that kind of stuff. And so she was on board. And so I let him know that I was interested. And so when they picked me, when he let me know that I would be the person that he was recommending to be the interim, I was driving. Actually, I was in the car with my husband. He was driving, and I told him, pull over. So he pulled over, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I was yelling, and I was just so happy because, this is a special place, and this is a dream of mine. And, to be quite honest, I'm under the age of 40 years old. And so to be this young and have this position is like, this is something that I thought I would get maybe 10 years from now. So to be doing it right now is just like completely blowing my mind. And I'm a person of faith, so I obviously had to thank God, because I just think, he orders your steps, and he shows you the path that you're supposed to take. And so I just was so grateful. And I will tell you this, every day it's ups and downs, like, and they come, there are like highs, real highs, and then real lows. But I have loved every single day that I've been in this position. And so every night I go to bed and I'm thinking like, gosh, I really hope that people, and I hope this for you, I hope this for all of our students, that you get to feel what it feels like to actually be doing the things you're supposed to be doing with your life. Like, it feels amazing to be in my purpose. And so I hope for you, Stephen, I hope for everybody that you get the opportunity, because like it's so much peace with it. It's so even with the ups and downs, when you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, like it's nothing. It's no better feeling. It really isn't.
See, I love that, and I receive that from young people, because we're young on here. I receive it from somebody older as well. But what I'm saying is, I receive that, and I love that, and that is so true, and it is so impactful, and I receive that. On a lighter note, I want to say another groundbreaking thing that you're doing that I noticed today. You are wearing your beautiful natural hair, and I listen. Okay, I love natural hair, and because I'm a dude, but I like, as you can see, I got these twists, and
Yeah.
you know, I have thank you, I have background in news and all that kind of stuff, and for so many years I've been told that this is not professional. It's not professional, it doesn't look good, it's not up to standards. So when I see another person embracing their natural locks and their natural curl pattern, I have to just, because you know it's a part of who you are. It's you. So I just want to ask you: do you even see that you're making that impact? Do you even know that you're doing that?
Okay, so Stephen, I'm gonna have a conversation with you, just me and you, that other people get to look in on. Okay, because I went natural in I guess 2008 is when I went natural, and at the time that was like the beginning of the natural hair movement. There weren't a whole lot of products, but my hair, for those of you who are looking in, I can tell Stephen, he'll know this, but everybody might not. To straighten a Black woman's hair, you have to use a perm, lye, chemicals. It's terrible. And so I started to thin on the sides. And I'm like 24, 23, 24 at that time. And so I'm like, there's no way, like I cannot continue to do this. So I decided to go natural. And so, you know, Black hair is a thing even within our community. So my mom was like, are you sure? Does that look professional? And, you know, people would even tell me like, okay, when you have interviews, you should straighten your hair because people might perceive that it's unprofessional. And I would do that for a minute. And so what I would say is like a little baby switch. Like I would come to you with straight hair, and then when I get the job, it's gonna be looking like this. And so, but over time, you know, it started to be a thing where people were okay with it. And about halfway through my career, I just decided like, this is me. Like literally, folks, this is how my hair grows out of my head. And I can't change that, nor do I want to at this point. And so if you can accept that, and it, you know, if you look at this and you think she must not be as smart, she must not be as this, that, or the other, then again, that's your problem. And so, Stephen, do you, like, your excellence is going to shine through no matter how your hair grows out of your head, no matter how you style it, who you are, your character as a person, you know, it's going to come through. And I don't set out to be some sort of example or, you know, trailblazers, but I do hope that especially women of color who are told like you can't, and even you, Stephen, who are told that this is not professional, look, we have to set the example. And now that I have this position and I have natural hair, maybe someone will say, oh, then it must not be a big deal. So, you know, I can only be me, as I said before. And again, this is how my hair grows out of my head. It's curly. It takes way too much to straighten it. I had it straightened last week, and then I walked. Thank you. And then I went for a walk on Monday morning, and it was crazy. So I had to wash it and let it come back and be who I am, because it's too much work to front and not be me. It's like literally too much. And so this is how it comes. That's it.
See, I love that. I love that. And I think that empowering and embracing yourself, that exudes into our university, that exudes outside of our university, so that people can see that they can follow that trail and not be like you, but say, you know what, I can do this too. And I think for me, that's what I want to say by having this, because like for us guys, you know, that have dreads or have twists, because I have twists and you know, whatever, like, sometimes we get it as well that, you know, this is not professional. You know, you can't do this because of this, or we feel the pressure to cut it to be a certain way. Then we're damaging our own happiness and our own personhood to manage to be like someone else, to make someone else happy. And that's
Yeah.
just something that I'm not going to do. I'm 22 years old. I don't conform to anyone's nothing except the good man upstairs and of course my mother. But like, that's it. And
Yep.
and that's just how it's going to be. So I commend you for that. And thank you so much for that. Just doing that. I want to ask you, because most of the time I'm asking, I love this conversation, by the way.
I
It's
know, so
so
good.
real. It's been so real. I want to ask you, most as an interviewer, do you have any questions for me? Because I don't allow people to do that. You don't have
Well,
questions for me.
how do you prepare? Like, how do you prepare for your next guest? Like, what's your process?
Most of the time for me, I think about the people that I want to have on the show and the people that I feel like are making an impact and are busy doing things to, allow people to, say, I can do that too. I can get something from this. I can learn from this. So that's what I try to do. And I try to really focus in on people who just have this aura about them, that it's not about them. They want to give back to other people. So that's how I prepare. And most of the time, with COVID, I just been going with the flow. It's been weird, but most of the time I kind of have an idea of who I want on the show beforehand. And I reach out, and some people say yes, some people say no, and some people are hesitant, but I just keep reaching out. I don't take no for an answer. So I just keep reaching out until whenever, Yeah.
That's a good trait, to be persistent.
Yes.
Well, what do you think? If you had to tell me, like, what's one thing you love about Austin Peay, and then what's one thing you think Austin Peay could do better, what would you say?
One thing I love about Austin Peay is the fact that it's such a unique, diverse university. And it's small, where everyone can really get to know each other and really build that family bond. There's lots of opportunities if you take those opportunities. If you see an opportunity and you go get it. People say, go grab that bag. If you go grab that bag, if you do that, you can fulfill and get that coin. That's right. You can fulfill the best thing ever for yourself. I would love to see more people coming together and embracing each other and their differences, because I still see that there is a color issue. There's a divide between people. I still see that. I still see that shift. And for me, I got love for all kinds of people. I do. Like, two of my bestest friends, I have a female and a male who are my bestest friends, and they're both not the same color as I am. And I embrace that. And I want people to understand that when you come to college, you don't know who you're meeting. You can meet your soulmate. You can meet your best friend. You can meet the person who can change your life. But you will never meet them when you're closed-minded and you're not willing to see someone past the color of their skin or the way they grew up or whatever they have going on or their orientation, because none of that stuff matters to us. That's all up to God to determine any of those things. So I think that I want to see more of that on campus. I want to see more love and people embracing each other. I know some people won't, but I feel like by us doing it even more, that'll help people, kind of force them to be like, I have no other choice.
Yep. I will say, like, you have to build a habit of that. Like, I hope that, your generation and beyond, I really think kind of gets it, that it is just about who you are as a person. I know growing up, I was in spaces where I was usually, I went to, there was a large diverse population. So I never went, except for in undergrad where I went to an HBCU. But like even in elementary school, I had a good friend that was Asian, and that's how I learned how to use chopsticks from, she would share her lunch with me. And so I've always just been that type of person who embraces anybody. And we can, if we can find common ground, like that's my jumping off point. Like if we can find something that we both can agree on or both can connect with, then I think that's really important. And so, I agree with you. You can look at someone and judge them off the bat and think that they're this way or the other, but until you really get to know them, like, that's where the real richness is. That's where the depth is, when you really get to know people and don't just judge them by what you see. Because gosh, there's so much on the inside of each of us that if you just judge me by the way that I look and the way that I have my hair, or where you think I come from, like, it's so much more in there. And I just hope that people do take that time to really get to know each other so we can really tap into that richness. And God makes everybody different. I firmly believe that. so that we can all appreciate each other. If every flower looked the same, who would want just a whole garden full of roses? Like, come on, give me some lilies and, you know, daisies and a whole bunch of other stuff, because that's the beauty of it. So
Right, right. Well, President Whiteside, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. This interview has been so impactful for me. Honestly, I feel like this was a conversation. It wasn't even an interview. It was just so much fun and just a good breezer. So I just want to thank you for that. And I just want you to continue just to fulfill the best part of you that you can fulfill, because people will look up to that and they will see the authenticity of it. So continue to do you. And I appreciate that about you so much.
thank you. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate your light. I appreciate who you are. And I want to just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. And, you know, this is a great platform. And I see for you, the best is yet to come. And so I look forward to how you're going to represent Austin Peay in your future. And just keep up the good work.
Well, thank you so much. For our viewers, I want to thank you for watching today as well. I hope you learned something from this great interview and this great conversation. And I hope that you took what you learned. And like we talked about earlier, we communicated, but I hope you comprehended what was said. Much love to you guys. Remember to stay safe. Always wear your mask when you're on campus. And also remember to think outside of the box. It's not about you. It's about your grandmother. It's about your grandfather, your siblings, your cousins, your aunts, your friends, all that. So think about other people. Stay safe. Much love to all of you guys. Until next time, stay safe. Oh my goodness. I enjoyed this so much. Let me see how to stop it. Okay, let me stop.